Hi, thank you for inviting me. Good to be here.
Thank you for coming along. We're delighted to have you. And I have to say, we haven't had a chance to catch up so much since you finished your innovation process, since you graduated.
Yeah.
So I'm really, really curious to hear how things have changed and how you've moved into this piloting off the back of this innovation process. But maybe just to kick us off, if you wouldn't mind kind of just speaking briefly about, why did Lindex decide to pursue circular business models in the first place and to step into the Switching Gear project?
Mm. Yes, I think, do I need to say something maybe about Lindex? I'm thinking maybe
Yeah, fantastic. I think
a
to give
lot
some
of,
context, if people
yeah,
don't know.
maybe not a lot of listeners know Lindex, and we're a Swedish brand. So we have been in retail since the 60s. So we have many years, but we started in underwear. But we are underwear, women's wear, and kids wear fashion, and we have approximately 500 stores, mainly in the Nordics, but we're operating in 33 countries in total. Just briefly to understand where we're from. And I think that 2 years ago, when Gwen and Helen contacted me, and then we had actually been doing a couple of tests ourselves, but we had also just launched our new sustainability ambition, and we had decided that we will have a climate target in line with science. So we have just decided that we need to have a 50% emission reduction goal across our entire value chain. And that means that we can not only address emissions in our supply chain, but we actually have to also rethink how we do business. So I think at that starting point, circular business models became much more significant to us to pursue. And we had to find a really more structured approach to working with these tests. And that's when exactly the timing where you asked if we were in need of some help, and we were.
So we were just lucky to knock on your door at that exact moment.
Yeah.
And looking back, I saw you kind of smiling when we showed that video of us all on these calls, and it seems already quite a long time ago, but
it was so intense for 2 years. We met regularly all the time, and then we haven't met so much since then. So it's really good to be back, and we miss the team.
Well, we miss you too. How, if you look back on that process, Annette, and with a little bit of distance, maybe these things are actually easier to answer. What do you think of as kind of the biggest learning or insight or value, I suppose, that the innovation process brought to Lindex?
Yeah, and I think that beforehand, the tests that we did, they were performed by different departments across our organization. So with this innovation, we had a cross-functional team. So we were, with the process, building knowledge on the transformation needed across all departments at the same time.
Yeah.
And also this was also a way for us to understand all of our goals, because maybe one department see one goal and another department see another goal, and we really had to work a lot on those goals, getting those goals. And now that we have them, we have a very strong foundation, because everything, as you say, springs from those goals. So that's an important part of the process. And I think that also it's good that to have just like a very simple process that you can just trust. So just follow this. This will get you from idea to market. And actually today we have a business model that works, that has a big interest, and that actually ticks all of our goals. It's small, but it has a growth potential.
Yeah, I remember once you said that you could, with the innovation process, you could focus on doing the work rather than thinking about what is the work that we need to do, which I thought was a good summary. If you think back, Annette, to any like specific tools in the toolbox, if people listening had to, choose one or two specific tools, are there any that you remember as being particularly useful in the process?
Yeah, we actually had a summary, the whole team around this, the whole tool and what we thought was, and I think that for sure you have to have all the parts of this tool. I mean, the beginning is kind of the foundation for everything, but our most favorite part is probably the constant prototyping, like setting those hypotheses and then constantly testing in small scale, and not having everything figured out from the beginning, but this kind of iterative. I mean, it's a process where you're constantly testing, and this is how we are still doing our development of this pilot, by constantly setting up these hypotheses and testing, and then understanding which way to go.
And I mean, you guys were a fantastic example. I wonder, could you shed a little bit of light on like what was that first prototype like? Because oftentimes I think when people hear the word prototype, they get a little bit scared, like, oh God, I'm not ready to put something out there. But it was really you and the Lindex team behind the scenes, receiving the garments, cleaning them. I mean, you did everything yourselves. And the kind of the insight, I remember one particular when we were assessing kind of the learnings from the prototype, one of the things you mentioned was observing the customer with these secondhand products, and that they were actually smelling a garment before they purchased it. So maybe just to hear a little bit of what were some of the things that you learned during that process, and what did the prototype look like for you guys?
Yeah, and I think that that is exactly the point of prototyping, that it has to be really small scale and very to get it to happen. It has to be something that is really small and tangible, and for a short period of time. It's just in and out. You're testing something, and then you just kind of do it like by hand, or you don't try to involve all of different people. We were only 2 or 3 people driving this test, so it was actually and we just had like 2 weeks, and just like, okay, in 2 weeks we will have it, and then we just started, and our pilot was a take back and resale of kids outerwear, and we first started to open up take back in 2 stores, and we sent out an email to customers that they could hand in the garments. Eventually nothing came in the stores because we had a corona situation, so we just quickly opened up, and customers could send in garments by post instead. And then it actually just came to our office, and we just opened the packages, and we washed everything by hand, and we just kind of got enough pieces together so that we could resell them in one store. It ended up in this test, and
the demand for the secondhand product was much higher than you anticipated, right?
Yeah, it definitely was. It was because I think we the first kind of, when we had filled the store, and then we thought that was lots, and then we just opened up, and then the next day I think half of it was sold. So it's like, okay, we have to get some more garments. And so it's really this just doing it by hand.
The challenge then, I remember, became, okay, wow, this demand is much more than we thought. So we're really going to have to focus on the take back. How do we get the volume back in? How do we create an engaging campaign? How do we get people to, because it is an effort to start bringing your clothing back. So, well, we've talked about the prototype, but I'd love to just hear what has happened since we last saw each other? How's the pilot gone? What's the current state?
Yes, this was the prototype. So then once we were ready to open this up again, then we had all of these learnings on how to collect, and how to resale, and what resources do we need, and what are the prices that we can have, what do we pay our customers for their returns. We had a lot of insights on all of these steps, and also we understood much more what do we need to do to make this function more systematic. So now we have resale in kids wear. We have piloted in 2 stores this autumn. We have collected that the customers can send in garments, and then also we just now actually we have started to collect all kids wear. So it's not only kids outwear. I haven't even informed you about that, Gwen, but no, so just 1 week or 2 weeks ago we opened up for all kids wear. And then we have another pilot running in Norway, actually, where we are piloting re-commerce of women's wear as well, and using the same process all over again. So this time it was a lot faster, I can say.
So you ran the innovation process in order to develop the offering for women's wear. Wow. On your own, so the toolbox worked then.
Yeah,
you didn't need us.
I was Gwen and Ida was Helen. Yeah.
How great. Fantastic. Well, I know we're almost at time, and I want to give a little bit of space for people to ask questions. So if you do have questions, please drop them into the chat. Otherwise, the last question for me, Annette, would be, brands on the call today, even though it is hopefully a step-by-step guide that's very simple and easy to follow, it can be an overwhelming prospect to enter into this new, this new space where so much is still unknown, So what would your kind of one piece of advice be for brands listening on where to start or what to focus on?
Oh yeah, and it's funny that you say just that, because the piece of advice that I'm thinking of is actually that when we started, we had really big ideas, like everything is possible. And then when you move into the second part of the process, then you have to do the first stakeholder mapping, and then you realize, okay, this is going to take a lot of resources. And then so in the end, I think that we ended up with starting much smaller than what we initially thought we would. But this, I think, was in the end very good, because the whole idea of this testing and developing, that is really a way of working that I think is very important for scaling this. If you just start very big, then you haven't any proof of concept, and you might doing the wrong thing. And if you start smaller and then you test and then you go back and you have to go this way, and then you test and then you go back, and then so I think this way of growing these businesses are actually very valuable to us.
So start small and get testing as soon as possible.
Yes.
Great, thank you. If you have questions, please do drop them into the chat. I see a lot of discussion ongoing, which is great. Otherwise, Annette, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
I see one question. Let me see. Maybe we have a chance for just one. Shania says, very insightful. I'm curious, did you face the risk of rental? In this case, it was resale, Shania, eating away the existing business model. So the question of cannibalization as a risk. I know you have strong feelings on that.
Yes, yes, because actually cannibalization is kind of the whole idea, because that's when the environmental impact is really happening. And that's why also it's so important, I think, to have think of this as a business. So just what you said in the beginning, why we are doing it is it's a market that is growing much faster. It's also I think it's a business potential, and that's how you have to see it, as a business potential. And you have to find a way to also make these products profitable, so that it doesn't matter if the new or the old compete with each other.
Mm-hmm. And that's very much kind of in the long-term vision for Lindex, right? This cannibalization is part of the plan. I mean, that's the end goal.
Yeah, I think it's for every business who has an absolute emission target. They have to reconsider their growth plans. Yep. And this can be part of a growth plan. That's the whole idea, I think.
Thank you. And one last, maybe from Annika, because I see it coming in. What are your experiences with pricing? Are your customers expecting cheaper prices because it's resale, or is it okay to them because it's sustainable? So how did you balance that? I know there was a lot of discussion towards the end when we got to that moment of pricing around also making resale attractive and allure, against things like your sale items in shop. So you did a lot of work to make the pricing model work.
Yes, absolutely. And I would say that I don't think any customers would buy them only because they're sustainable. But I would say that if you make the offer good enough, the customer is not sensitive at all to the price. I think they don't have to be as cheap as secondhand normally is. It can be much higher also. And I think it's also how you put them. And when we washed everything and made sure that we have like the offer that we sell back, they are scrutinized by us, and we are making that offer look just as good as our first offer. And that's really key, I think, in selling them at a higher price.
And where does it fall? Remind me, Annette, like what kind of percentage of the original retail price?
Half price maybe. But we can also, depends on how it looks, but some can even be higher, and some are a bit lower. But
and then of
we
course
have like half of the normal price, and I think that's still a good deal if you get a really good quality.
And maybe
product.
Sometimes you get a really retro vintage item back in that's worth even more. And what was the incentive that you settled on for the customer, for the take back customer?
In the beginning, we gave them like a gift card, but now we are using our member club, and they get like points from a member club, but they get they get a voucher for every like garment that they send in. So it can be differs a little bit depending on what products, but maybe a fourth of 25% maybe of the something like that.
Yeah. And all of that has a big impact on the overall business case, these things in combination.
Yeah, because then you have to make up for all the transport, but these are all figures that you can tune.
Yeah, exactly. They're called levers that you can play with until it hits
how many garments are sent in per parcel, and it's
you're an expert in all of this. We could talk for hours. But I know we're already at time, so I'm just going to say thank you so much, Annette, for joining us.